Okay, today we are talking about the most important blues technique there is. And it's not only the most important, but it's also the hardest. Technically and physically it's challenging. And of course talking about bends. Um, Bends is, in case you didn't know, which I'm sure you do, but let's get fundamental here. Bends were basically, we are pushing the string up the fretboard. See, we are actually creating a higher pitch when we bend. See how the pitch changes? And the further up we bend, the higher the pitch. Now, bends can be performed anywhere, but they work out better in some places than others. In our beginner's box, we tend to like to keep our bends maybe on the 3rd fret, and we're just doing a slight bend. But we can also bend up on the 5th fret, but we'll want to bend it a little higher. Okay, for example, the 3rd fret. Now when I bend, I want it to sound maybe right here, this fret right here. See how this fret sounds? When I bend it, I want it to sound that pitch instead of, but I can also, if I have a strong bend hand and I use supporting fingers instead of just my first, I can bend it up where it sounds like 2 frets ahead. And that one's harder to control. So usually when you bend with that first finger, you're not going to be able to get a really high bend. You can, but it's a little tougher. If that's the only finger you have to deal with in that situation, that's fine. But a lot of the bends, the spectacular bends, will come up higher up on the fretboard. Now on the intermediate box, I like to bend those 5th frets up about half a fret, 1 fret, which would be a half step bend. But there at the 7th fret, we start getting some of those full steps, which would be 2 frets, sound as 2 frets above. And then we can put that nice vibrato when we bend it up. And then the breathtaking spectacular bends would occur in the Albert King box. Now you see those bends I'm doing on the 10th fret. I'm using the support of my backing fingers right here. I'm fretting it with my ring finger and using my other 2 fingers to support it. But there's also a bend up here. Okay, let me show you what we did there on the 10th fret on the high E string. And then there's this bend right here on the 10th fret that in order to get it right after that, on the 8th fret I should say, right after we play that note on the 10th fret, we actually use our first finger, and that's a little harder to do. As you can see, it tears into your skin terribly. But that's a nice typical blues lick. So the bends are something you just kind of have to play with to get used to them, because you do have to actually perform them, and you need to be able to control how it sounds. If you overshoot like that, it doesn't sound right. And when I'm bending that up like that, I'm actually sounding, like I said, 2 frets above, which would actually be an E, which is the 5th of the A key signature that we've been playing in. So if I'm doing one of those big bends, most likely it's going to go to the tonic 4th or 5th. But there's lots of interesting places to apply these bends on this fretboard, and these boxes: the beginner's box, intermediate, and Albert King. And we'll talk a little bit more about bends tomorrow, and because it's a very comprehensive subject that we need to spend enough time talking about. Hopefully this serves as a pretty good little introduction to them, or at least we're thinking about them now. Until tomorrow.